All right. The Kentucky Derby is done. The Belmont Stakes put a stake in it. We're time to get to the real races, and that's what we're going to do today on the rotation. Cue
In my soul, you're a corner in my heart.
Good morning. It's Sunday. And our Sunday, of course, in this town means Ybor City is alive and well with my deputy director to my right, your left, Carlos Angel Ermida at the helm. He's also our master of business administration. I'm Gary Stein, your political director here at Suncoast Normal, and your master of public health.
Oh,
With the applause. That's the finger up then.
there's so much. Like, I'm trying to set up the Instagram live feed, and like I'm balancing everything. So
This is what happens when you don't get enough dabs in the morning.
I've done plenty of dabs. Don't get me wrong.
Okay, this is what happens when you have too many dabs in the morning.
And the jeez, and the Instagram feed ain't going up. Crazy.
Okay, well, I'm sure you can fix that during the show. And in the invisible secret square is our executive director, Chris Cano, who's got some tech issues he's working on, and hopefully he'll join us soon. But
He's
I'm
I'm
a political junkie, as a lot of people know. You know, I'm one of those political nerds that thinks that the correspondence dinner is like the coolest thing in the entire world, right? That's total nerd palm. But the fact is, when you see Leadership Blue come on, when you see the Republican Party go ahead having their platform building, whatever they do, they build a wall, I think. And that means that we get to start interviewing various candidates here in Florida because we want people to have visibility. Because it's just kind of like, you don't want to be like when you get to the polls and you have to choose judges, right? Now, when you choose judges, how do you do that? You say, I recognize them. I saw them at the market the other day. It ain't going to happen. In fact, I'm not even certain how judges get elected by the people. Oh, wait a minute. They don't. We get a chance to retain them, but we don't get a chance to elect them. So and I've tried to bring judges on our show, by the way, but we can't because they can't discuss issues during an election, which is really interesting. So you have to go strictly by personality. And that's why Clarence Thomas got as far as he did, because he is chock full of personality. But the fact is, we have our election coming up. We've already had one candidate very, very early on. We had Nate Johnson come on in, and Nate Douglas, rather, sorry, and give us his realm. And he's already started up pretty well over there in the Orlando area. And in the Tampa area, we have a District 66, that's been flippy-floppy for a couple of years. But we're going to get it straightened out, and this is one of the ladies who's going to be doing it. Now, I am going to, because of the fact that I've been talking too long and I'm starting to sound like I'm babbling. Bree Wallace, give us your short bio as to who you are and why in the world are you running for House District 66?
Yeah, so hi everybody. My name is Bree Wallace. I live in District 66. A little bit about me. I've lived in this district, even when it kind of got redistricted, almost my whole life. I went to elementary, middle school, high school there. I went to HGC and USF, where I got a degree in Communications and Sociology. And then after college, I went to work with Tampa Bay Abortion Fund, which I'm still at. So I help a lot of people with abortion access. And I'm running because I think it's really important for not only women to run, but for young people to run and for everyone to be in a race so that there is someone to vote for. And of course, Florida right now is going through it. And I really do think we need good people up in Tallahassee making laws for us.
Now, abortion and women's health issues in general always seems to be a good springboard because it is a populist kind of issue. In fact, I first met Anna Askamani when she was still working for Planned Parenthood, and we were at a USF parents thing where my daughter was getting honored, and she was walking around trying to promote the fact that one day Planned Parenthood is going to be fully funded and have no problems. And of course, we're still working on that as concern. But so you basically have come from the abortion field in what you're doing right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm still working full time at my job too. So especially with 6 weeks happening, there's a lot going on behind the scenes of abortion.
Well, that's good because, as you know, our legislators here in this state of Florida are to part-time jobs.
Yes, yes.
Bree, I have to admit, I looked into you a little bit before we started the show, and
That doesn't sound appropriate.
to be honest with you, and it's probably because I'm a guy and I don't know much about abortion. But to be honest with you, I'm a little confused on what you do. Like, can you tell us exactly what you do right now?
Yeah, for sure. And you're not the only one. A lot of people don't really know what abortion funds are, don't know what they do. Uh,
First off, let's start at the top. What
yeah,
is abortion?
abortion, yes. Abortion is
No,
either,
no, you don't have to start that. Just, just
I was gonna say there are two kinds. There's pills and procedure, but yeah, so an abortion fund, and all of them are very different. There's five in Florida. I think there's about 100 throughout the US. And we all kind of work a little bit differently, but the main thing behind that is that we fund abortion. And now, since there's so many bans going on throughout the US, we also fund travel. So, my main job, and I do a few different things, but the main thing I do is I help abortion seekers, who we call clients. I help them with clinic costs and getting that set up for them. Especially with 6 weeks now, I kind of play travel planner. So I book like their hotels, their plane tickets. I help with ride shares when they go to other states. And then I do a lot of like our social media and outreach.
So if somebody wants to get an abortion and is unable to under Florida law, you basically locate them to a part of the country that would allow what they're trying to do.
Exactly, yeah.
Cool.
And we at TBAF work with like certain clinics out of state. So we work a lot with like Illinois, DC, Maryland, places like that. So pretty much the North now, since the South really only has Virginia left, and Virginia's packed with people right now since it's closest to so many of these banned states.
Mhm, mhm.
And of course, we in Florida are right next to Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, and the the basic no man's land of women's bodily rights. I would think you would call it. And we're just one of those states that, for some odd reason, they felt that if they jumped on the bandwagon and made it a big ban that made it so ridiculous that you had to know that you were pregnant before you knew you were pregnant,
Yeah.
then that everything would be okay and everybody would be going for it. But the fact is, we do have a lot of pro-life people in Florida, and I say that loosely because they're also probably in favor of capital punishment. So I haven't quite figured that out yet. I guess life ends at birth, right?
Something like that. And I think even, for the next year, we'll see a lot of pro-life people kind of change their tune because you look into a 6 week ban. And of course, there's a few exceptions beyond 6 weeks. But in my line of work, I've seen that like people are on nearly their deathbed because they're hemorrhaging, something went wrong, but it doesn't align with the laws here. So you could die here needing an abortion if you couldn't get out of state. And that goes for wanted pregnancies as well. So I do think that this law could also hurt a lot of people who typically
Well,
are pro-life.
when you come across somebody who's pro-life and you're definitely pro-choice, how do you come to a common ground? Is there a common ground between the two of you? You can continue to have a conversation that goes beyond abortion, like, say, for instance, that discusses felons getting the vote. If you're both in favor of that, how do you get past the pro-life argument and go to another one?
Yeah, and I mean that's of course hard, and I mean you're going to see that in life with so many different topics that you're never going to agree with someone on. And I mean honestly, I wouldn't have friends with people who are pro-life. Sure, I'll have a conversation with people that are, and I do think it's important to work together on things. So, if they were for felons being able to vote, okay, it's kind of like if they were, pro yes on 3 and not on 4, I would still be, happy to talk to them about yes on 3 because I think it's important.
I
Now,
feel
that's
though,
a great
I feel
segue.
I feel like if you're yes on 3 though, then I mean there's some sort of, I mean, I don't know.
I hope.
Rationality is a weird thing. You know what I mean? So like they're you know they're I guess you got to take each one of these by step basis. But you know if you're yes on three, you might just need a little bit of education on abortion
Yeah.
to really understand what's going. I don't know. Maybe I'm just hopeful. You know, today is such a weird political climate. The truth is that like you know you hear about like what we're talking about right now. It's like, yeah, you know, I could have a conversation with these people. I can be amicable with these people. But it used to be that like across party lines, you know, Democrats and Republicans could be friends.
Yeah.
And it's become we're such a divided nation right now. It really is painful to see. I remember having a buddy in college that was married, like he was a liberal that was married to a Republican wife. And it was just strange. It was very strange.
That wasn't Augustus, right?
No, it wasn't Augustus. But oh geez, what's going on with my freaking camera now? So it's just like uh like how successful have you been lately on really changing people's minds? Like you know, I think it's I idealistic even for what I was just saying to think that just education is going to change somebody's mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do you find a lot of people like once you show them a little bit of common sense towards the topic, tend to lighten up or not really?
I was gonna say, to be honest, people are pretty stuck in their ways. And like I said, I do think when 6 weeks goes on for a while and people who are pro-life are affected by this, you know, if they have a pregnant wife who is obviously a wanted pregnancy and something goes wrong and they can't get care, they're gonna realize like everyone is jeopardized by this, not just people who are pro-choice. So I think it's important to bring that up in conversations right now. And you know, like Yes on Four is trying to be very nonpartisan. So I think when it comes to Yes on Four, maybe even Yes on Three, to kind of try to like keep Democrat and Republican out of this and just this is an issue for all of us. Doesn't matter who you vote for, what you do, it's going to affect every single one of us or the people around us that we care about. And if you care about someone, I would hope you would listen and use some common sense.
And you know, come to think of it, like you know, I'm approaching this as like we're one and the same as fellow activists. But
Yeah.
the truth is like the abortion topic probably, you know what I mean. Me and Gary try to convince people that dumb stoners should have rights. You know what I mean? And the abortion topic, it's a little bit, you know, it's religious in nature, and it's you know, like some people really think that you're trying to murder babies and
Yeah, I agree. I think they're definitely a little bit different. Abortion is obviously like on the forefront this year. Every
yeah.
single Democrat, I'm sure even some of the Republicans are bringing up like abortion because now they see it's a popular topic. So many Floridians did not want that ban. So it does go beyond just that. Like you said, there's religion in it. There's so much.
You have to
But
be careful with religion when it comes to abortion is concerned because you start talking about biblical times, you have to remember the state of medicine in biblical times. And then if you start talking about the treaties that came on during the Middle Ages, well, bring on the leeches, I guess, as far as that's concerned, because medical science has changed quite a bit. At one point in time, it was figured destiny that if a woman was destined to die in childbirth, as long as you can save the baby, let the woman die in childbirth, which I'm certain women weren't too thrilled about when it came to saying, let's have a family.
yeah. No, exactly. And I mean, I've also talked to a lot of religious people through my time in this, and I've had a lot of them who end up being pro-choice. So I think every single thing is case by case. Like you meet everyone under the sun, and sometimes you would think this has to be the most like anti-choice person, and they end up surprising you, which is always nice. And you know, I love to see that, but I think it's very I think I also get nervous at times talking about this with people I don't know because you never know. I was in an Uber and he was like, "What do you do for work?" And I was like, "Oh, what do I do for work?" um social services type of thing, I guess.
That's funny because every time I'm in an Uber, I'm like, yeah, I'm in the marijuana field. It's like, isn't that cool, bro?
Which is cool.
So
No,
I mean, no,
awesome.
we do have we do have different, activist fronts, and I think you probably struggle a lot more than we have to. You know what I mean? And to that kudos. I get disheartened and I get upset about marijuana laws, and I'm sure under the stress and how passionate people are about being pro-life, you have cards stacked up against you. So kudos to you, man, because that's got to be very difficult. um but but abortion and cannabis really are getting lumped in together when it comes to Florida politics. And I think Gary was trying to segue into cannabis earlier.
I'll hand that one off to you. You did a good job. Now I'll take over from here. Well, it's interesting because, again, these are two topics that are on their face unrelated, unless you talk about the fact that we really need to save our fetuses from recreational cannabis, so we have to vote no on both, right?
I think people that are pro-life should just start smoking weed, and then they'll lighten the fuck up a little bit. What do you guys
We do have we do have scientific studies that go back. There was a dynamite one that was done in Haiti in the 1960s. No, not Haiti. It was in Jamaica in the 1960s by a nurse that actually showed that uh, those women who had used cannabis during pregnancy versus those women who did not use cannabis during the pregnancy, which, by the way, that the latter was hard to find in Jamaica at the time. Uh,
Mhm.
the fact is, they found that the ones that were on cannabis thrived, both as children, intellectually, health wise, and things of that sort. In
Mhm.
part, as somebody who was in public health, I can tell you that the health of the child is almost indirectly surrounded by the health of the mother. If the mother is healthier, then the baby is healthier. So if a person's endocannabinoid system gets saturated and they become a healthier person, the baby will be healthier. That is the logic that goes behind this, and that is actually the way it works. I mean, we've seen just in the African American population that you are affected not only by the health of your mother, but your mother's mother and your mother's mother's mother. It goes down from generation to generation as to how well they treated themselves versus how the baby turns out now.
Mhm.
And so
Yep.
there is an actual connection there that way, as far as science is concerned, if I can use that term loosely in the state of Florida, because I've been told that's one of those words they're planning on banning, like climate change.
Yeah, and
We're back
interesting.
to that, guys.
Interesting story. I had a friend of mine in grad school reach out to me, and she was like, I heard you went into the cannabis industry. I just, I have some questions about cannabis. And she's like, I just had a baby. And I'm experiencing a lot of pain from breastfeeding, but I want to continue breastfeeding. And she was like, I was wondering if I could use cannabis. Would that like mess with the baby at all? And I was like, you know what, I don't really know. Why don't you let me see if I can find some research, and I'll get back to you at all. And then it was like, I remember it was like a kind of clicked in my head. I was like, did you talk to the doctor about the pain yet? And she was like, yeah, I spoke to the doctor. And I was like, did the doctor give you anything for the pain? And she's like, yeah, he prescribed me Vicodin for the pain. I was like, yo, okay, so first of all, let's stop taking that. And I could tell you right now, I don't even really need to do research. It's like cannabis is probably going to be a little bit better than the Vicodin. It's incredible how shitty. I mean, everywhere, it seems like everywhere from the start of pregnancy to breastfeeding, it's like doctors don't seem to know what they're talking about and really are affecting women. I don't know. But anyways, I digress. I messed with the segue into cannabis earlier, and now we're back on abortion.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the little boomerang bit. But but I am interested in coming now. Bree, you are a Gen Zer, is that correct? Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah.
All right,
Yes.
so we let Max Frost into the playpen, so to speak. the sandbox, as it were. That sounds better. And it seems like the Gen Zs are taking a much greater role in politics than the Gen Xers behind them, and and millenniums possibly. I'm not certain, but the fact is, I'm seeing this generation as being far more involved, which is kind of nice because I grew up in the '60s and '70s where the '60s guys they went from being hippies to putting on polo shirts and cargo shorts and putting a sweater around their necks and going on yachts. And
Yeah.
then in the '70s, we were all forced to wear polyester. It was very traumatizing for us. Plus, we had we had bad weed that we were using because that's all we had. But things have changed, and normal was one of the things that made it change because in 1970 we got started on trying to stop what the Republicans were doing as far as the Controlled Substance Act, and they're still working at it today. That's what we're doing. That's why we all got involved in normal. And so I guess my question to you is this: what brought you to the point where you wanted to go ahead and take your passions, like abortion and others, and bring it to the legislature?
Yeah. And I mean, going back to Gen Z, I honestly think that Gen Z will change the world for the better. I think a lot of us are a lot more involved than anyone before us. We truly care about our community. I mean, you can see mutual aid so much more. You can see people trying to help one another. And I think that's so great. And I think some of us will bring that into so many different things. Mine right now being, I thought it was very important to run for office to try to give these people a voice because you often don't see that in politics. I mean, we all know politics is usually rich, white, older men on their yachts,
Yeah.
uh, which isn't the majority of us at all, like at all. So I do think it's very hard to see these people making laws for us and telling us what we can and can't do, and they do not live that same life as us. Which is why I got in. I'm like a more normal person, obviously, than them. I'm not on a yacht. And I just really think we need people in office who know us and care about us. You look at like Anna Eskamani, she is always talking to the people in her
I love
community.
this.
Yeah, she shows up to everything because she truly cares and wants to show people that she cares. And then you see people like Costa, who I'm running up against, who is almost never in her community, nor talks to them, nor truly cares and wants to get to know them. You know, she's like a little plant for the Republicans. She just kind of stays there and keeps everybody happy. Which,
Most
Tracy here.
politicians, yeah.
yeah, which is what we don't need. So
Are you being primaried as far as you know?
no, no, just me for the Democratic side.
Okay,
Cool.
and on the opposite side is Tracy, who was the representative for District 66 last year. And
Yeah.
we tried to move some legislation to her and didn't see it moving very fast or very far. So we're hoping to get, well, you've got to get involved in the culture of our legislature, which for the Republicans is very much a top down thing where you have to talk to the legislature if you want to go to the bathroom or not. You have to get a hall pass. You have to talk to leadership, and whereas the Democrats would rather fight amongst each other and not get much else done. So you've got the other side of that as well. But there are times of unity, I think, where things can actually get done. But it's important that you want to be involved, that you want to speak out.
Well, as far as cannabis is concerned, I mean, as even with it being an amendment initiative this year, I mean, the only progress I feel that we've seen as far as cannabis is concerned, granted, Gary helped write that CBD bill that came out before Amendment 2 was passed. But the only real movement towards progress with cannabis in the state of Florida has been amendment initiatives. We've worked to amend our constitution to allow it because we haven't been able to rely on the legislator to do this, right? The issue with Florida cannabis is not necessarily passing amendment initiatives. Yes, it's a difficult thing to do in Florida, but the issue I've seen is that how our legislator enacts these amendment initiatives. So medical marijuana has been a shit show in Florida because there's no licenses being distributed. There's a horrible vertical integrated system that or horizontal. I forget which is the difference between vertical or horizontal. It's all in the same thing. Um, I am the MBA here. It's always been enacted poorly. Amendment 3, a lot of people are scared because of this. We've seen how the medical marijuana was enacted here. We see the way that Amendment 3 is written. We see that it's a true leave initiative. It was honestly, Bree, it was very difficult in this. Like, Suncoast Normal is pro Amendment 3. But when we were discussing it, as you know, as an organization, it was pretty difficult to really take a stance to really come to this, at least for me. So, how do you think this should be enacted? Like, how do you think adult use cannabis should be enacted here in Florida? What do you think are the most important things that we should put forward?
Yeah, and I mean, the amendment's great, and
Yep.
I'll tie it in with four for a second of the fact that we've already been told by legislative that even if both of these pass, they're going to try to fight them to kind of like push them back, not give us what we want from them, kind of like how it went with felons and voting. So, I mean, amendments are great and 3 and 4 are great, but I think it's who you have in office that is going to make the change for these because they can easily try to strike these down. The same way that they've had the power to do something about this for years and they
Mhm.
haven't. They could have brought this up themselves and they didn't. So I think it's very important to have people in there that will do that. And then I mean, I think I'm obviously pro 3 and I do think that
Well,
it's
here's some things that have really. Sorry to cut you off.
no, you're
Here's
good. You're good.
some things that have really been important to cannabis activists here in Florida. The ability to grow at home is pretty important. You don't see any of that in this amendment initiative. The fact that this amendment initiative brought forward to True Leave, even though it could be said that the legislator can open up the licensing process, how closed that licensing process has been in Florida has been an issue. And a number of different things. What do you think about growing at home? What do you think about the closed system?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's fine as well too. I think there's no problem with it, really. I don't see why there would be if you can go and buy it from a store.
Mm.
And I'm sure there's a lot behind that, but you know,
Yeah,
that's capitalism pretty much.
There's a reason why it was not included in the amendment, and that is because of the way that we have to structure amendments here in the state of Florida, according to the Constitution, except during times of the, like you said, Constitutional Revision Committee, where they decided for some odd reason, if they had enough special interests, they could cram a bunch of bills together that made no sense together. Like for instance, if you're voting for a ban down on vaping, you're also down up on fracking at the same time, which actually did happen.
Yeah, and
Uh,
and I
that's
mean,
just the nature of Florida. But you have to have you have to be a single issue. So if you're
yeah.
talking about Amendment 3, which for those of you who don't know who are in it now, is our amendment to create adult use cannabis in the state of Florida. I try not to use the word recreational because, again, it's not a matter of recreating; it's a matter of using it as an adult and in personal use and a non-medical use, that kind of situation. In fact, that's the way that the Supreme Court actually wrote it down as non-medical personal use. They didn't even use the word recreational in their answer when it came down to it because they saw it as that. They narrowed it down to that. And the word recreational actually was meant to knock it down in California back in the 1970s and 80s because people use heroin recreationally. You know, and that kind of situation. So I'm trying to change that, but it's difficult when they're going to throw it on a damn amendment. So that is where we stand as far as that's concerned. Uh, but yeah, I see that, and I was torn when it came down to our own vote in regards to Amendment 3, whether I was for it or against it. Obviously, the thing with the home grow, that is not going to be an issue. I think that may have to happen legislatively because as you'll find out, the legislature is definitely certain that if we have any kind of home grow, there will be what is called diversion of product, which means you plan on growing it on your front lawn and giving it out to the kids as they walk home from school. Whereas in actuality, people who do home grow, they have it in a big foil box in their living room, most likely, so they can do it possibly right and get medicinal grade product for their particular medical condition and get your hands off my damn medicine, kids. That's basically the way it comes down to for those people who do home grow. But we need to go ahead and move forward with that legislatively. And we have actually bills for home grow for the legislature. In fact, we have bills for everything that they haven't done right from the very beginning, like preventing people from getting jobs if they have use medical cannabis, having kids lose their parents lose their kids if they use it medicinally, which is ridiculous because in a lot of cases, especially with people with PTSD, cannabis allows them to be the kind of parents they want to be because they're feeling a lot more normal and a lot less hypered out in that kind of situation. And we keep people from getting kicked off the transplant list or getting kicked out of an institution for using cannabis if it's working for their particular condition. Now, as far as reciprocity is concerned, which means when we have people coming in from out of state, if we do have adult use, that's not going to be an issue anymore, which is, I guess, good because we have 120 million tourists coming to Florida. And it would be a shame for grandma to come here on vacation and leave on probation because I can't see her sitting in Falkenberg jail for too long. But that does happen here in the state of Florida. And of course, we wanted to have those conditions for people who have the medical program be expanded because we don't want our medical program cannibalized to allow folks to have the adult use issue. And the adult issue, we know damn well, it has a lot to do with business is concerned. Number one, we'll be able to start collecting taxes.
Yeah.
And taxes hopefully will go towards actually like education or something good and not towards funding the culture wars and giving it to Moms for Liberty or anything of that sort.
I hope not, no. And I mean, yeah, of course, there's only so much you can put in an amendment. And I do hope that, if it does pass, a lot of other things go into legislative and pass as well. Because, I mean, like you said, they did not talk about home growth. And then, there's people who have obviously been arrested for these charges who are in jail or prison here. Why would they still be? Like, if it's legal, it's time to get people out, which they shouldn't have been in the first place, unless it was a violent crime, like most people say. So I think that's very important, and I mean, I think it would also. We obviously most of the shops we see in Florida are like the main like 4 or 5, and I would love to see like more smaller businesses be able to get into that and actually thrive, and for our taxes.
The audience seems to really like that. I don't know.
Yeah, our virtual audience there is really impressed with that, with your knowledge of that particular topic, which is good because there are a lot of people who wanted to get into this industry from the very beginning. When I started working on the CBD amendment back in 2013, 14, people were calling up and just saying, dude, how can my wife and I become a mom and pop over there in Florida? But we're looking forward to actually getting this thing started. What do I have to do now? And here it is almost 10 years later, and I'm sitting there saying, chill, go out, make a couple $1 million, come back and we'll talk. Because that is the way they have it set up in Florida. And that is the way it seems like it's going to stay with this particular amendment because of the way it was written. Of course, it was written by somebody who could afford to promote the amendment to get it on the ballot in the first place. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You can't do it on grassroots. We have had people work for years and years and years to try to fund an amendment enough to get it on the ballot. In some cases, like our good friend Kobe Wise, God bless his soul,
Rest in peace.
died before they ever even got a chance. And he worked at it for year after year after year. You worked with him, Chris. Carlos, rather.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't work directly with him, but he was he would show up to every single Suncoast Normal event and a big thing of petitions, and he's like, "Why didn't you invite me?" It's like, calm down, Kobe. Come on inside. Get some petition side. he was a good guy.
But grassroots means no money, basically,
Yeah.
or not enough anyway.
Yeah, and of course, money usually wins or goes a lot higher. And
How are you doing financially with your campaign? So I can ask. I always have to throw that question out there.
Sorry, what'd you say?
How are you doing financially on your campaign? I mean, we had a governor who, believe it or not, had like a coffer of hundreds of millions of dollars to run for president and spent every dollar wisely. So it is now officially flushed down the toilets of Jacksonville or wherever he was at the time.
Yeah, and I'm going to say something that people I'm sure don't want to hear, but I do not think that a lot of these politicians, the amounts that they have, I do not think that's needed. Like, I'm grassroots, like, I'm doing fine in a grassroots way. I would be doing terrible in their sort of way. Kind of like how my opponent has almost 400,000 and she was in a race with no one against her. And what was the reason for having that? Um,
Hey,
yeah.
lawn signs cost.
They do, yes. But if you see the way that some of this money is spent, it's odd. But I mean, money is a good thing to have, of course, and I'm doing okay. But like I said, I'm obviously very grassroots. I'm not in a corporate type setting. I'm not, someone who obviously is older and has a lot of people that I've met through my life. A lot of the people I know are people who are my age, who are just getting started in life, and like I said, are more normal people.
Well, a couple of elections ago, I was talking to a friend of mine who was putting on a fundraiser for a Republican friend at the South Tampa Yacht Club. And I said, "This is quite a spread. How did you be able to afford this?" He says, "Well, we already had about $20,000 in our coffers, so we spent it on this so we can go ahead and raise some money." It just seems like a cycle, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Let me ask you, and feel free to be like, yeah, I can't talk about that. But have you had anybody come up to you and be like, Bree, like, listen, we can make a generous donation if you just like shut up about abortion a little bit, like, has that ever happened yet, or
No,
no?
thankfully. And I think that's another thing that I would never succumb to. Like, I would never like push my values away because I wanted money for a campaign. Like, that's
Mhm.
not how I want to run at all.
At the end of the day, you got to be able to sleep at night.
Exactly. Exactly.
One of the supermen out there who's helped us out with our cause for many years, Carlos Guillermo Smith, he made a public issue of not accepting a check from Walmart.
Yeah, I love that.
And therein giving himself the publicity that he could have gotten from using the money from Walmart, essentially.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's very important, especially if you're fighting for certain issues and then you take money from something that doesn't coincide with that. What is the point of that? So I think that's a whole thing in politics. It's very important who you take money from and then what you're using this money on.
And yet, we are talking about Amendment 3, which is very much so a bipartisan issue. I
Hmm.
mean, we already know that the Republicans, that they have their own little rotation going on after some meetings. I'm not going to say who was in it necessarily, but at least one of them was the Commissioner of Agriculture at one point in time. I'm not going to say who that is. But the fact is, and it's not Nikki. But the fact is, they have a public persona and a personal persona, which is fine. Everybody should have that to keep their sanity in gear. But the fact is, you've got an issue that it won at 71% for medicinal. Now, the polls out there say right now that it's about 65, 62 approximately, which is really, really kind of scaring a lot of folks because all it takes is one good indica coming out and over a true leave, and half those folks won't show up for the polls.
And I mean, I think it's very important this election cycle too. And we say it, I'm so sorry, my throat is like so sore. Um, we say it every cycle, like you want young people out there and voting, and this is obviously an issue that is very important to people who are younger. So I think that'll help along as well, is they have something that they want to vote for on the ballot, so they'll actually go out and do it, like in 2020 when so many young people came out because they wanted to vote for Biden and they wanted Trump out of office. You have to put something on there that kind of intrigues people to come out and do it. So I do have a lot of good faith that 3 and 4 will pass this year.
I would certainly hope so. I mean, it's going to be difficult. At least they didn't bump it up to 66, which is what they were planning on doing as
Yeah.
far as the percentage of people that are required, a supermajority, as they call it, for an amendment to pass. Because again, if you don't have very strong bipartisan issue, nothing is going to pass at that point in time. That would
No.
be just the way it goes. So you're going to have to reach across the aisle, and we have had some champions on the other side of the aisle. Senator Brandis was fantastic for us in a number of ways. Of course, he wasn't really a Republican; he was a libertarian. So
Mhm.
or so they say. But also,
I remember having him on the podcast, and he was an interesting like character. You know, I've sat in his office and I've spoken to him before. We had him on the show, but I remember he was just like, yeah, I'm not like, he was just like done with politics by the time he was on the podcast. Like he was just like, oh, I'm fucking done with this shit. The Republicans hate me now because I haven't sold out. The fucking he was just like, yeah, whatever. Okay, yeah, funny marijuana. Gah.
well, when the medicinal thing came out, he was the only one who had written an amendment that actually had whole flower in it. Everybody
Cool.
else was rejecting it because they were told by upper leadership, do not include it in there because we don't plan on doing it for at least a couple of years or until somebody gives us a whole bunch of money to do that. Truly, I can't say who that was, but the fact is, they did manage to get flower in on another day. But we need heroes on both sides. We need heroes that are willing to reach out. I'd love to have a bill that actually has a Democratic and a Republican sponsor. I
Yeah.
mean, that would make so much sense. But if they don't talk to each other, how the heck is it going to happen in the first place? Because when you'll find out, you'll get in there, and I'm being positive here, that you've got to have a bipartisan support, and you've got to move your bills. So it has to be moved on both sides. You have to whip both sides. If it was
Yeah.
Florida crackers, that's a different kind of whip, okay? But that's gathering votes as opposed to whatever else you crackers used to do.
So so where is District 66?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Yeah. So it's North Tampa. It's kind of like the suburbs. So it's like Carrollwood, Northdale, Lude, Citrus Park, Lake Magdalene type of area.
All right, cool.
Yeah, and I'm on like the very end of the cusp of it. So
I'm pretty close to you. I
So
live.
were you a Gaither student?
yeah, yes.
Okay, because that's old Jamie Grant's district. At one point in time, he was very big on the numbers as far as Medicaid expansion, things of that sort. He was very good at that, but he had his own ideas in regards to where the lip funds should go and things of that sort, and it didn't quite work out. And that's an interesting area, like I said, North Side, North Carrollwood, somewhat affluent, and I got some very interesting debates in that area.
What do you mean by affluent?
Old Carrollwood.
Oh, so just like old people.
No, Old Carrollwood is actually more than the age of the houses as it is necessarily the age of the people.
Ah, okay.
The old folks are in Pasco County over by the nudist colonies.
Like historical.
Yeah, hysterical.
Ah, okay. I'm sorry. You use those boomer words on me, man.
Yeah, I know. Well, Ybor is about as old as you can get for Tampa. Yet, are there a lot of old people in Ybor?
I don't. Nah.
No, you can't be because for one thing, you have to be able to avoid gunfire. That means you have to run.
A lot of like the old school
I didn't mean that.
property owners. Nah, it's just gunshots out here all the time. It's only been making the news recently, but it happens all over Tampa, to be honest. Anyways,
Well, I love Ybor, so
I love Ybor too.
I think it's amazing out there.
Well, we have 3 different generations here on the show.
Yeah.
I'm born in '83 millennial, and Gary's an old man. I gotta tell you, at least
You're
for
fine old.
you say things like affluent.
No, affable, not affluent.
That is a very, very nice way to say historical. But I gotta tell you, the millennial representation, I'm all for it. If I had the ability to vote in your district, I would.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Um,
Yeah, and it's a odd district, I will give you that. It's obviously a lot more Republicans in that area at this point, but we also have a good amount of independents in that area, which is always a great thing to have on your side as well. And, 3 and 4, like we've all been saying for months now, I think it'll bring a lot of people out.
I
And
I would think so. I think, politics is just, I mean, it's so weird right now. You've got Republicans that believe in legalizing marijuana, yet the Florida Republican Party doesn't. You know, people are very, stick, but they want to be part of these big groups. And I think, I think you got a shot. I think you can make it in that area, and I hope you do.
well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Now we do. I did want to ask you in regards to what was your own personal experience in regards to cannabis concern, which is not a deal breaker at all because we got Tom Keene involved. He had like zero experience with cannabis, and yet when he started go out there talking about 3 and 4 issues at the same time, as in Amendment 3 and Amendment 4, that actually helped flip that district in 35.
Yeah. Um,
And Keen too. He's up there representing. He did a lot of stuff with the hemp bills too.
yeah, and I would say that my background in it is kind of limited in ways. Like I have a partner who has a medical card, so I like saw that process and saw how that can go. And then, I mean, I
You're not a
personally
pothead, is what you're saying?
I personally don't engage with that just because I am a little paranoid person whenever I try to do anything like that. So not my cup of tea, but it's kind of like when you're pro-choice, like you want it for other people and you believe it should be available to them. And that's my
Mhm.
thing. I think it should be available to adults over 21. There's no reason it shouldn't be in my eyes. I mean, you see cigarettes easily available, alcohol, and both of those kill people and cause a lot more problems. So,
Yeah, it's definitely. Cat Williams is a controversial figure right now, but I remember him saying, "It's like, take a whole bottle of aspirin and that'll be your last damn headache." And
I,
cannabis has never killed anybody. You know,
exactly.
so and yeah, and don't get me started. I want to like go on a rant about like hard Mountain Dew and shit right now, but I'm
Ugh,
not gonna do it.
yeah.
Well, my experience with Gaither High School was when I used to be in charge of the SWAT program for anti-tobacco back when I was working as the anti-tobacco person for Hillsborough County, and that was the northern reaches, so to speak, of my district and things of that sort. And what I saw was a diverse group of students, oftentimes with diverse but leaning on sometimes the more conservative attitudes, possibly because that's coming down from their parents is concerned. And yet I saw that also that there was a certain amount of activity going on there. That people just didn't want to just sit around and do nothing, but they actually wanted to get involved. When they actually had a debate there for the legislative delegation, which they had every once in a while because they had a nice big auditorium, uh, the students came out to listen. That also happened at Blake, and it happened at Plant High School, and a couple of the big ones, King as well. Not so much some of the other ones. So it was good to see that you came from a more activist schooling.
Yes,
Did the
yes.
teachers actually promote that?
I think a few of them definitely did. I had a economics teacher, and I am blanking on his name, but I think he was really great in encouraging like students to go out there and be a part of things that they are passionate about and to make their voices heard. And I do think that's really important. I think amendments like this too can help get out people who might be in high school or just starting college, things like that, because it's something that they actually feel that they can be involved in. So I do think it's important, especially important to get younger people involved because this is their life that's going to happen.
And
So
if your Gaither High School economics teacher is listening now, I'm not saying who you are because I think I know who you are. Just remember, she might not remember your name, but if she remembers the lesson, that's the important thing.
yes, and I'm just terrible at names, so it's nothing on anyone. I That's my one flaw. I can be real bad at names.
Okay, macro or microeconomics? What is more exciting?
I can't even remember right now. I didn't say I was doing good in that class because I was probably skipping.
Okay,
But
well, here's how it works in Florida. Macroeconomics, they want all the dispensaries to have vertical integration so they can take over the entire state and have an oligopoly where only the rich players are involved. Here's the micro about it. Every single mom and pop involves a small businessman hiring employees, each who take home their paycheck and spend it on whatever is available. If you keep the big guys and get rid of how much micro you can disrupt, if I can use that millennial term.
I, I'm going to say disrupt is a boomer term.
Well, if it is, then I accept that. Because it's not a bad term, actually. But
Nah.
Carlos has been heavily involved in the fact that during this last session, they were working very hard to get rid of the smoke shops, essentially, by taking away their main products that was profitable for them and that weren't doing any harm. That's the important thing. I mean,
that,
that kind of shit, that did harm.
yeah,
And that
that
was
was
a
so
product of
stupid.
overregulation and over policing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They love to bring in laws that make absolutely no sense and waste time and money on effort when we could have solved so many problems. Like, I don't see who that was hurting or why they needed to do that. That was
You have
ridiculous.
no idea how ridiculous it got. Like, not anything to do with this last session's hemp bill, but enacting the hemp bill that was passed the previous session about like no 21 and only being 21 and up, and not being attracted to children. They were trying to make arguments that the color pink and the color blue were attracted to children. And like we actually had to remind them that we're like, hey, pink represents like breast cancer awareness. Like you can't take away colors,
Yeah.
especially when sometimes they represent something good.
They will say the most outrageous things. It's
Yeah.
like when they brought up tattoo artists for the abortion thing, being able to perform. And it's like, how did you get to that conclusion in your head?
What did they say? Tell us.
They brought up something because we were talking about like healthcare providers, or they might have said like providers, and they're like, well, that could be people who work in like tattoo shops. They did not really explain
Ah,
why that would have possibly been who someone could provide healthcare information, but they tried to bring in like you're not specifying who enough, and it's like it wouldn't even be your regular doctor. It would literally be like an OBGYN or someone within like an abortion space. So
like
they
we share a building with a tattoo shop over here, and they definitely the only thing I can think of is that they have to follow medical procedures for
yeah.
sterilization, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
So I think they were trying to bring that in. It made no sense. And they know it
Hey,
made no sense, but they were just trying to say like some really dumb
I
stuff.
mean, and these are professionals next door. They do these beautiful color things. They don't just say, "Yeah, we specialize in putting your name on your knuckles."
Right. Yes. No. And I mean, I love my tattoo artist. I have my few, and I love her. Would I get an abortion from her? No, probably not. I mean, love you, Morgan, but I don't know about all that.
holy
So,
crap! That is a great business idea where like you
right.
can get an abortion and a tattoo at the same time. That
Oh,
would be so great.
Well, I mean, they're already on the table, right?
you're already a
It's
little bit out
like,
of it.
it's like in
Good
that
enough.
movie where
Pull up the chair and the gun.
nobody wants to have dinner and get a tattoo at the same time. It's like it's like Ruby Tattoos days.
Amazing idea. I mean, we see how small businesses go here, but you can always try.
Well, we're going to try to keep businesses like Carlos's going by making certain that we fight these kind of things. We don't know if the governor is actually going to sign this piece of legislation. I mean, it passed on March 6th. It was towards the end there. But as of right now, it has not even been put into the folder to give to the governor's desk yet. And it's getting close to the end of June pretty soon. And he's not going to have much time. So tick tock, they're waiting to see if this bill is going to go forward. And if it does stop the sales of all Delta 8, Delta 9, and all that bit. And I think it really is an unnecessary bill because
Very.
These smoke shops are actually very good about self-policing. I mean, they're worried about things being attractive to children. Carlos does not let kids in under the age of 21 to buy anything, which is good because if you look at Carlos, he is not attracted to children. So that works out very well right there. But they're more worried about
Great to me.
Yeah.
they're worried about packages having colors on them, and that was in part because of the idiots over in California who would co-opt other people's graphics, and so you have Mr. Goodhigh, it looks exactly like the original bar, Mr. Good Bar, that kind of thing, or Nerds Ropes, which look exactly like Nerd Ropes, unless you look for that little tiny THC album emblem in the corner where it also says CA, meaning it was made in California, not in Florida. So stop bugging us about that stuff being Florida stuff. It's important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was just in Washington and Oregon, and they were so strict about 21 and up. Like the second you walk into there, they're like ID like now. So I don't see that for like being a problem that would happen. Like I don't think it's going to get into children's hands that way at all.
All right, so you did some research by going to the Highlands
Yeah,
and checked
I
out how they did
just
over in Colorado and Aspen and in Portland and that kind of situation.
yeah, I was in Portland mainly, and then like a little bit of the Seattle area, and then just random places around it. And I'll say like there was so many like small businesses, mom and pop shops, like pertaining to weed, and I think it was great. Like these were great shops, and everyone was thriving, and the whole state did not smell like weed. So
Which is not a terrible thing. It just depends on what you like. I mean,
Smells
if you,
nice.
with all due respect, I used to live in New Orleans, and if you ever walk down Bourbon Street the day after a big night, it doesn't smell the greatest, and it's not cannabis that you're smelling.
nope.
That is true. The way Florida like normally smells, it smells pretty bad.
Smells hot. That's all I
Yeah,
smell here. It's just
yeah,
hot.
it smells like piss and sweat to me.
That's Ebor.
I think if we add definitely Ebor, that's definitely what Ebor smells like. But if we add marijuana into it, like on a Friday, Saturday night, you smell a lot of weird shit. But sooner or later, you get somebody walking past you with a joint, and it's like, finally a break.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Febreze.
Yeah.
That's our version of Febreze, for God's sake. Well, Lee,
So
it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. We're looking forward to seeing you on the ballot.
wait, I don't want to get rid of her yet. I don't want to get rid of her. So you have a partner that smokes marijuana.
I didn't mean to wake you up, Brett.
Do you have a partner who smokes marijuana, Bree, or uses medical cannabis?
I have a partner with a medical card. Yeah.
So you don't have to say anything about their condition or anything. How do they normally consume it? Do they smoke it?
Generally, yes.
Okay, so do you live with your partner?
Mhm.
All right, do you make them go outside?
Usually, just because I have animals and I know they don't like that smell too much. So yeah, they're usually banned to the patio.
Oh no. Okay. All right, you can go now.
I buy very expensive candles, so they're up in there. They're not getting ruined.
Oh, Bath and Body Works. Try Wick.
So yes,
Exactly.
I cut Gary off in the middle of saying this, but there, we always like to take some time at the end of the show for our guests to take a look at the camera and tell people some thoughts, maybe tell them where they can get a hold of them if they have more questions, or where they can find out more about you, or how they can support you, how they can donate to your funds and everything like that. So please, let's take a little bit of time doing that.
Yeah, for sure. So first off, my website is Bree for Florida, BREE. Generally, the name I go by. I know Brianna's seen a lot of places too, but Bree is preferred. So you can go there. My information's there. You can email me at bree@breeforflorida.com. I'm on pretty much every social media as well under Bree for Florida. And I mean, I do love talking to people, especially about these issues. It's something I'm passionate about. So many other people are passionate about. And I love to see the way that people spark up when they're able to talk about this. And that comes, yeah, and that comes from everyone around me. And this comes from younger people, older people, just everyone. So I think that's really great. And, I would love to see younger people be able to participate in this more and feel that they have a say and that they are welcomed in this space. Because that can be the hardest thing about politics. Like I said, it's usually a lot of older white people who are in these offices, and that doesn't need to be the norm. It needs to be people from all areas, all ages, all colors, anything as such. Who are talking to us and leading us. So yeah, thank you so much.
And if anybody needs to donate to your campaign, it's www. Bree for Florida. Go through Act Blue. It's safe. They won't take your credit card information and go out and buy gas in Colorado or anything like that, right?
Ah, man, Gary, we didn't talk about Biden's Schedule 3 thing.
Oh, we're going to get to that too. We're going to do some more national stuff coming up. I know we got next week. I believe we have Sean Shaw coming up. He had run for Attorney General. Now he's going for county commission here in the state in Hillsborough County. Once again, trying to implement the proper things that we tried working on years and years ago, and they're still working on it as far as that's concerned. But all politics are local, but they have worldwide implications, and so we plan on doing that and talking about the national situation in regards to, oh boy, yeah, descheduling versus rescheduling. Be careful what you wish for, but we'll find out how that happens later on. In the meantime, we need your help to make these things happen. Like we said, we may have your vote as far as going through is concerned, but once it gets to the legislature, they have every opportunity they have to fuck it up, and they will take every opportunity to fuck it up. Just like votes for felons, just like purchasing land in South Florida to protect the aquifer down there, just like so many things we vote for that pass, including Amendment 2 and the medical use cannabis thing. We had to fight for years to even get half of the glitches fixed, and the other half of the glitches are still there, and we need people to help us move the bills, the ones that we discussed before in regards to home grow and medical protections, employment protections, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And these are the things we need you to join and help us out with. And you can do that by going to Suncoast Normal /membership. That's down there.
Oh, well. You can just scan that code.
Oh, yeah, that's the code that's almost covered up by the time. You scan that code, you become a member, and you'll get a beautiful cannabis pin that I'm not wearing right now, which really freaks out the people over in Publix and Northside. just so you know, and also get your membership card and 10% discount over at Chillum CBD and mushroom.
25%. That's not enough. 25%.
25%.
Yeah.
He is going all out there in Ybor, and to support the industry and to support the vote, and therefore supporting yourself. We are there for you. We need your talent. We need your treasure, and we need, what was that third one?
Time, talent, treasure.
Time.
Time.
Good time to go. So we will see you again next week on the rotation. Thank you so much, Bree, for coming on. We hope to see you again soon for your victory party.
Thank you so much for having me and for doing this.
Bye. Thank you, Bree.